What's happening, everybody? Off the Mike Sports Network here. Another edition of Off the Top Rope. But listen, wrestling has been kind of dull, um, for a large chunk of the year. But leave it to Andrade, of all people, to put a jolt into this year because, like, man, I did not have this story in the last month basically taking up a lot of wrestling talk in the sphere because it's been bananas what's happened in the last month. Because if you guys remember, he was effectively fired from WWE for multiple wellness policy violations. And then 2 weeks ago, on the Dynamite 6 year anniversary, he shows up, joins the Don Callis family, and hey, cool. He's going to be feuding with Kenny Omega. The last 2 weeks, we have not seen or heard from, and it hasn't even been referenced on television since he showed up. Like, nothing of the sort in the 2 weeks since he showed up. And we've now uncovered and found out why. Um, Apparently, there was a miscommunication when Andrade was let go by WWE. There was the assumption that there was not going to be a 90-day non-compete, which seemingly, if you are let out of your contract early, that is the standard for a main roster talent. And apparently that was not, either that was miscommunicated, was not communicated. We do not know. The bottom line is he made appearances with, other promotions, including AEW, which is a much bigger deal because AEW is mainstream and is on television and has a major television rights deal with Turner, Warner Brothers Discovery. And he has now been pulled off of television, and seemingly WWE submitted a cease and desist letter to AEW, which effectively meant Andrade's pulled off of television. He can't be seen. Now, a lot here, because we don't really know the other half of this. But based off of, it's going to be really hard to make Andrade or AEW look good in this scenario. Now we understand, like I'm not going to dance around and beat around the bush here and basically be like, and say that, WWE and TKO have good business practices. No, like this is kind of a shady way to go about things. But in the end, the legal part of this, Andrade signed a contract in January and appeared there. And here we are less than 2 years later, and he's back in another company. And the way that it ended with WWE, we've heard he broke some rules. He broke some rules, and based off the multiple wellness policy violations, he clearly did not want to be in WWE anymore. And he went to extraordinary lengths to get out of it. Now, we don't know really the piece of it of, hey, was he told? Were his lawyers told? Was it lost in translation because of Andrade's English? And that part of it we don't know. The bottom line is the fact that 2 weeks after he was let go, he was put on television almost immediately and thrust into a storyline with Kenny Omega tells me one of two things. Either AEW legal people are complete and utter hacks, which is probably the piece of this, because this is on the legal aspect of things. When you go into business with anybody, your job is to vet any sort of legal ramifications that you could run into. The fact that they rushed to get this guy, put him on television, and 2 weeks later he's immediately pulled off because of legal stuff tells you that AEW did not vet this process completely. That's not on WWE's. Like, these are binding in contracts when stuff happens. So whether Andrade knew it or not, he's got lawyers and he's got people representing him, and AEW's got people representing them that are supposed to vet this out. Now, the practice of this in the 90-day non-competes, I don't like that. I think this sucks because I think people should be allowed to work where they should be allowed to earn a living no matter what the circumstances. Now, the shady parts of this, of what Andrade did, okay. But in general, I do not like the part, especially when releases happen due to budget cuts. This was not one of those cases, but generally, I do not like the whole you can't work there. Now, because Andrade really screwed this up and because of, the AEW, Andrade may not be able to be seen on television or be in any other promotion for a year if that's the case. Like here's the reporting, and I've got it all in front of me. Apparently, according to Brian Alvarez, and Wrestling Observer can be kind of murky with some of its information, but the new TKO contracts have a clause where if you are fired for cause or breach, there is a 1-year non-compete. The older contracts had this, but it's standard now. This is the holdup. This is the primary holdup involving Andrade. So, after he began making appearances, this is from PW Insider, WWE clarified to Andrade that even though he was not going to get a traditional 90 days pay following his release, he was still subject to the 90-day period where he couldn't perform anywhere else. So, look, again, these are things that you have, and contracts are long-winded documents where some of it's the language, like, whenever you sign something, whether it's a lease or whatever, you got to look through these things because you're at the end of the day, when you sign on the dotted line, you're yourself. And then if you want to hire people to represent you to sort through this, it is on you to know your role whenever you are fired or whenever a document comes into play. I've known this whenever I've signed anything in my life. You always have to protect your own ass. And at the end of the day, I think two entities in the WWE, like I said, the practice of what happened here, I don't like, but WWE and TKO followed the law here. And Andrade and AEW did not. And that's why we're in the situation we're in right now. Because, look, on one end, I hate when people, end up being in a certain place and, they can't be able to make a living. That sucks. But if you do this to yourself, it's hard for me to feel sorry for you. And it goes to show you that what I said when Andrade was fired by WWE and ultimately this happened, Andrade's clearly a problem. He's a talented guy, but he is not worth the trouble. And this is the latest example of that situation because he didn't know what he was doing. And then AEW, by the way, great job running your company, a great job with your legal department, clearing this guy to go. And I know some people will run at me saying, well, Mike, what's the whole thing with Brock Lesnar? Like, guys, these are two different situations. I don't like what happened, and we may never know why Brock Lesnar got cleared. Andrade was under contract with WWE. He was fired for breaking rules. 2 weeks later, he is in another company, just cleared to work like nothing ever happened. And we found out that he wasn't because he was subject to a contract that he signed that he breached in WWE. That's where this whole situation is. And I know this is going to be a hot button issue moving forward because of, and it's interesting that, like I said, of all people, Andrade El Idolo is really at the center of one of the big stories in wrestling this year because a guy getting fired and then jumping from place to place, and this is kind of like a running joke. It's almost like the amount of heel turns the heel and face turns the Big Show has had is like, how many times is Andrade going to switch companies? But one, the fact that this is coming up during a pay-per-view week and then he gets inserted on the 6-year anniversary show into a big storyline and then disappears. And now we may not see him into 2026. Like, this is a wild story to dissect. So hopefully we'll get some more information on what happened here. But my goodness, this is just a bizarre and strange scenario where a lot of legal people really look stupid, specifically on the Andrade and the AEW side, because this can't happen. This cannot happen. When you are in any business, it is the job of the organization who is signing you, and it is the job of the talent or athlete or whoever to know what is going on legally with each, so you don't run into situations like this. This is one of those situations where it's hard. It's like on one end, as a human being, you kind of feel bad because, hey, they're getting screwed over for work. And like I said, the 90-day non-compete, I don't like that. but the guy was fired. And then if you're AEW, you've got to vet the situation before you rush to sign the guy. So really just a weird situation playing out in AEW and WWE. But we'll hopefully have more information on it. Stay locked in here on the channel. We'll hopefully have more information. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.